Hello, and welcome to the Working While Homeschooling podcast, the podcast for workingwhilehomeschooling.com, where our mission is to help homeschooling parents make money, maybe even have a career, while continuing to homeschool and without losing their sanity. My name is Julie, and I am your host and resident career coach today, and I want to thank all of you for joining us and listening in. I hope everyone's doing well. On today's episode, we'll be talking to Sherry, who is a counselor working from home. She is also homeschooling 7 children, 5, I think, active right now. And some of those children have special needs. So she's homeschooling special needs kids. She's also working with a permanent condition as well. So she's going to tell us all about her experience managing all of that and how she makes that work. But before we get into our conversation with Sherry today, I wanted to touch in and I wanted to make a quick announcement. You know, everyone, our site is live and active now. And I do have a couple little things that I'm working on. But we have such great information on our website, not just this podcast. So if you have not checked out our website at workingwhilehomeschooling.com, I would really encourage you to do that. We not only do we have information about places and how to go look for work, job leads that I'm finding for you to share. We're going to eventually also have some job search tips and advice as well, how to go look for a job, some more resources there. And I want to make sure that everyone is hearing about all the latest and greatest that we're sharing there on the site, including ongoing contests and information. I have pounds and pounds of free stuff that I am trying to give away to you guys. So if you have not checked out our site lately, please stop what you're doing. Go check out our website at workingwhilehomeschooling.com and make sure you are on our mailing list. All right, let's get into it and get into our conversation today.
So, Sherry, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Sherry Vincent, and I am a homeschooling mom. I have 5 kids at home. They are ages 9 to 11-year-olds, a 16-year-old, and a 19-year-old that's getting ready to go off to college and the military. And I work part-time as a professional therapist or counselor, and I do that 3 afternoons a week.
Okay, fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about the job that you do. Like, how did you get into that, and how did you choose that as a position, as a role?
I actually was getting my training long before we chose homeschooling. When I was still single, I was going to university and getting my training to do this as a profession, and then when we decided to start homeschooling, we had my 2 oldest were in grade 1 and grade 4, and we decided that I had actually wanted to homeschool from the very beginning, but my husband had been laid off, so I had to work more than just part-time, so we couldn't at the beginning, or I thought we couldn't at that time anyway. And so when my husband was in a new position, we decided to start homeschooling, and I stopped working for a number of years. We adopted several more children, and I continued to homeschool. But then my husband was again laid off. He's in a very kind of boom and bust industry with the oil field. So and I also became ill with Lyme disease, so I was having a lot of healthcare costs and things like that, and it just wasn't possible anymore for me not to work. And I did enjoy the work that I did in the past, so I wasn't, it's not that I wasn't enjoying doing it or not wanting to do it, so that was kind of a logical choice for me to go back into that field, and because I was able to do it from home, it just made sense. So now we do both.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about the doing it from home part, because I'm thinking that might be kind of unusual or something new to most of the listeners.
Yeah, I actually do e-therapy, which is either online or over the phone. And it's something that's been around for a long time, but it's definitely kind of gaining ground. A lot more therapists do it now than was the case when I started. I mean, I was doing it over 10 years ago, but it certainly wasn't as common at that time. So it's nice because I can do it from home. I live in a rural area, so I probably wouldn't have a lot of physical clients if I was only seeing people, face to face. So I work with an agency, anxietycenter.com, and I get referrals through them. And so I have clients all over the world, and they can see me at a time of day that works for them. Because of time differences, often it means that they can see me
Right.
when they're done work, or it's convenient for them.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, so, how does this all work with working and homeschooling at the same time? Kind of like
Yeah.
scheduling and layout and stuff. Now, I know we talked a lot a bit about that originally.
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. I was very much a hands-on type of homeschooler, so I did a lot of the actual teaching myself. I was very involved. We did a lot of experiments. We went places. It was that kind of homeschooling. And when we needed to make this change, we had to make some changes to our curriculum, and start using some things that were a little more student directed, and that they could handle doing more of it without me being right beside them. So we made some curriculum changes, and for the most part, we do homeschool in the mornings, and then I work in the afternoon, and they, can work on things or finish things up if they need to, but I wouldn't be there during that time.
Okay. Okay. And I know in original call you kind of have a you have some extra kind of things that the kids are dealing with in addition to just you working and homeschooling too.
Yeah. My kids, 4 out of the 5 are adopted. 3 of those 4 have special needs. So we have quite a range of challenges, and so we have to find programs that work for each child, and they're all doing something completely different from the other one. But we
Mhm.
kind of have a good setup with the ones that have higher skill levels, helping the ones that have lower skill levels. They do that more than they used to, which I felt bad
Mhm.
about at first, but it's actually been a really good thing for them, and it's really increased their ability to be independent and their understanding of helping other people and things like that. So
Mhm.
there have been a lot of benefits to it as well. And of course, they don't do all of the supervision by any stretch, but
Right.
I'm doing that when I'm around, and my husband does as well when he's home from work, which is new. Before, when I didn't work, my husband wasn't very involved in the homeschooling at all, and now he is more involved. So
Okay. Well, what about the kind of the dreaded socialization question about what are there local resources or local homeschool activities or things that your kids are doing, or how's that working for you?
we do have a local homeschool group, but it's not very active. Occasionally, there'll be a class or something that we go to for, once a week for 4 weeks or something, but it's rare. We do that sometimes, but my kids have lots of friends. We do lots of activities through church. They're involved in music
Mhm.
and different things. And one of my sons was in cadets, and so there's a lot that they do. They would be extracurricular, where they get lots of opportunities to see people and talk to people. But in all honesty, I don't worry a lot about the socialization. I know that, homeschooling, just being here, they're interacting with people of different ages and abilities and races.
Yeah.
So just being
Yeah.
at home, they're getting that.
Right.
So
Exactly. Exactly. Um, and I do remember when we were talking before, and one of the things I wanted to point out to the listeners is you mentioned that working in homeschooling is kind of not very popular or not well known in your area.
no, it's not at all. Most people forget that I work. If I'm talking to them, most people know I homeschool, but forget that I also work, because it just isn't something that a lot of people are doing. I know a couple of moms that maybe do photography a little bit on the side, but to have like a job where, it's a given number
Set
of days every
hours and
week, and set hours, yeah, all of that is, I don't know anyone else in this area who does that. Um, And I think a lot of people feel like it's not possible. But if I can do it with Lyme disease, then anyone can do
Right.
it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And how is that? And like, okay, if you're the only one that that does this in the area, how is that kind of like for you? Um, are you found like, your network and things are very supportive, or how's it
it
been experienced doing this on your own?
it is somewhat isolating because I don't see people nearly as much as I used to,
Mhm.
because pretty much all of my time is taken with either homeschooling or working, and it is really
Yeah.
hard to fit it all in. But I work on making sure that I don't lose touch completely with the outside world, and a lot of what my kids do would be with my husband taking them, or my oldest son. So I'm not always there for the extracurricular stuff, but I make sure that
Right.
I get out there, talk to people, do some things.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Um, so when someone hears that you're working and homeschooling at the same time, since you probably do, like when it does happen, you probably get that. What are some of the things you're hearing people say? Like, what are some of the comments you get?
Um, mostly they just say, I didn't think that was possible. Is that allowed? Is that against the rules? And, all those kind of questions that, you get those questions anyway, even if you're not working. People wonder what you're
Yeah.
allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So I just, sort of explain that, I have enough time, and that honestly, even if I worked full time, we would find a way to do it anyway, because we believe in homeschooling, and for our family, it is what we need. And so even if it was more hours than I'm working now, we would still figure it out somehow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and oh, I had a question now. I can't think of what it was. Um, so, so with that, somebody comes to you, it's like, is that even possible? If I remember correctly, you were in Canada, right? Did I get that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. What are the homeschool laws like there?
It depends which province you live in. Every province
Right.
is a little bit different. So where I am, we just basically have to submit our goals every year and our outcomes every year. So there isn't really a lot we have to submit. We also, though, don't get much in the way of financial assistance. We submit our receipts for our homeschooling expenses, and we get about $250 a child back. But our taxes, of course, are paying thousands to the school district. So we don't get much,
Right.
and the other provinces get a lot more. So, well, not every province, but lots of them. So that's a little bit frustrating. But the nice thing about where I live is that we don't have to send much in. We're not really monitored unless they think there's a problem. So that makes it easier.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, I was just kind of curious, how that might be different than the U.S. So definitely getting money back, I would say, honestly, that's definitely a big thing we wish we had here,
Yeah, well,
for
it's
sure.
supposed to be because, we pay, thousands and thousands
Mhm.
of dollars every year to the school systems, which our kids
Yep.
should, would be in. And then it's just meant to be getting a little bit of that back. So it's essentially our own money that we've already paid in taxes, but it's
Yeah.
obviously not the full amount. But yeah,
That is not caught on here in the U.S. yet. I bet all of us homeschoolers wish it would.
I'm
Um,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so you're working, you're dealing with a medical issue of your own, you have special need kids, you're homeschooling. How do you not go insane? I mean,
I'm not
or
sure. I have
is that
dogs.
like,
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I don't go insane. I think probably I sometimes feel like I will. Um, but uh, it's okay. We do things for stress relief, and we have basset hounds, which we love, and we always call them,
hmm
our therapy, our stress relievers. And I don't know. This is our system. This is what we do, and
yeah. Well, tell me about your system. Like, everyone's always curious. How do you, like, really, like, how do you make it work? So tell me about your systems that you're using. Are you set up for yourself?
Right. Well, I make a schedule for each child for the year, and it's just like a grid, and it explains, it says, reminds them how many pages a day, or units a day, or whatever they need to do in each subject, and they record what they're doing, and that's really about it. They also know, I guess, what their responsibility is towards the others. So if they're helping another child with something, then they have that written down as well. And then I just kind of supervised it in the morning. And then I have always someone for childcare while I'm working. So it's either my 19-year-old son, or if he's not available, it's someone else. And then if they need to finish things up during that time, they do. And then I review things afterwards, and my husband does as well, like in the evening. So
Okay.
it's just what they're used to, and I don't think the kids really think about it at this point. They would love for me not
Right.
to work. They would love that, and they say it all the time. But I'm pretty sure most children feel that way about, even if they're
Right.
in school and their parents are working. So I'm sure most kids would love to have you 100% of the time, but this is not an ideal world, and so we have to work. That's life. So
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Okay, so what do you think, like, some of the biggest challenges or problems that, when we're looking at this working while homeschooling thing that you've had to face? And, like, how did you overcome it, or how did you deal with that?
I think the biggest challenge is just not, you know, kind of not being able to be as flexible as I used to be. Excuse me. Because before, we could change things up, whenever we felt like it. And, if we wanted to do something in the afternoon instead of the morning, or we wanted to go somewhere. Now I have set hours. I have clients that have set times that they see me. And so I don't have that option. If something comes, to town that I want to take the kids to, if it's during my work hours, we can't go. So, the flexibility
Yeah.
has been a bit of an issue. But again, it's, we look at it like, you know it would be, for our kids, it would be far worse to send them to public school than to have made these adjustments that we've made to the way that we homeschool. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I honestly totally get that, because I have the same thing with my work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this great field trip, and I'm like, oh, but that's during this
yeah,
time, or
yeah,
oh, all of a sudden they rearranged all the play groups are in the mornings now versus the afternoons, and I'm like, why? Um,
yeah,
so
I
yeah,
know.
I kind of, the constraints of being so tied to your calendar, I absolutely cannot stand that. But what can you do? Yeah. Well, I know that we as women in general, and probably school moms even worse, but we as women, we're really quick to put ourselves down, and we only seem to talk about what we stink at. Um, so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what would you say is one thing out of this whole experience that you have done well? Or what are some of the positives that you've personally really gained out of this experience?
Well, I think what I'm doing well is I'm keeping my kids at home. For
Hmm.
for us, that is key. And I learned a long time ago that it was more about keeping them home than what I did while they were home. And I'm not saying that it's
Right.
not important to put thought and time into what you do with your kids to teach them at home. I'm just saying that that's not the most important factor. So I try to hold on to that and remember that, in a perfect world, I might do a few more things or do some things differently, but ultimately I'm doing what's the most important, and my kids are with me and they're learning from us.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Um, do you have any questions that you would ask the listeners to today? If you could, if they could talk back to you today, what would be one of those questions out there that you wish you could get answers to?
Well, the scheduling is a big one. I would love to hear more of a lot of what you've asked me today. I'd like to hear the answers, the same answers,
Yeah.
because it's always good to, get ideas and see if there's something that might work a little more smoothly. Or, I'm always open to kind of looking at what other people are doing and seeing if there's anything in that that could help us. So pretty much everything you've asked me, I would love to hear about what other people do to deal with those things.
Oh, awesome. And as we wrap up today, what's kind of maybe one, if you had like a word of encouragement that you could leave everyone with today, if, that they could kind of walk away with and remember, if there was just that one little nugget that you would want to share, what would you want them to walk away with today?
I think it goes back to what I was mentioning before about the importance of having your kids at home. I went to a homeschooling convention quite a long time ago, and right, I think it might have even been the year before we started. And I went to one one little hour-long seminar that someone did, a university professor, and he had home educated his kids, and he worked, and he was an unschooler, which I'm not, but so he didn't really plan much with his kids, and he talked about how they would watch soap operas, and they learned to read by themselves, and they just from those kind of things, which is not it's not at all the way we do things, but what it did teach me was that my kids were going to learn, even if I didn't do things quote unquote perfectly, they were still going to learn, and that ultimately the most important thing is that they were home with me. And so if I was doing my best and they were with me, that was the goal met right there, and then anything above and beyond that is a bonus. So I just encourage people not to think that they can't have their kids home because they're working, and if this is what they feel called to do, that it is absolutely possible. On paper, I shouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, but we are, and so I think that anybody can do the same.
As we wrap up our episode today, I want to thank all of you for listening in. There are tons of great podcasts out there, and you chose to spend your time here with us, so thank you. Please be sure to check out the show notes for any links to my site and all of the great ways that you can connect with us online. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please feel free to give us a positive review, subscribe, and share with all of your homeschooling friends, or of course, all of the above. If you know someone that you think would be a great guest for our podcast, please don't hesitate to let me know. You can always email me at julie@workingwhilehomeschooling.com. And remember, you can always reach us through our website at workingwhilehomeschooling.com. So thank you for listening today. Thank you to Sherry for being our guest and talking about her experience of homeschooling and being a counselor from home and all of that great information that she shared with us today. And if I would love to make sure that you guys join us in our Facebook group so we can continue this conversation on today's topic and beyond. Again, thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you soon at our next podcast for Working While Homeschooling.